Welcome, everyone. This is a Prescott City Council voting meeting. Today is Tuesday, May 24th. Can we have any introductions or announcements?
Well, of course we do, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like everyone to realize that we are now going to be entering stage 2 of our fire restrictions this Thursday prior to Memorial Day. So everyone, please be very careful out there with your open flames. Firstly, we have the City of Prescott Economic Development Office, part of the Tourism and Economic Division in the City Manager's Office, was recently named Small Economic Development Organization of the Year by the Arizona Association of Economic Development. Yay. The award was presented at the spring conference in Tucson last month, and Prescott was nominated by another member organization. In the award recognition, it was noted recent business acquisitions, including CP Technologies and the FedEx ground facility, which is scheduled to open later this year, were some of their accomplishments. Congratulations to our Tourism and Economic Initiatives team, Mr. John Heine, Ann Stewart, and Christina Binkley, and to the entire City Manager's Office for this award. Great job, everyone. And secondly, we have another airport open house tomorrow. Area residents are invited to learn about the proposed extension of Prescott Regional Airport's primary runway on Wednesday, May 25th, between the hours of 3 and 5 at the new terminal. The public can stop by at any time during the 2-hour window. The purpose of these open houses is to detail the benefits of a runway extension and allow the public at their leisure to view a series of posters and speak with aviation planners from Dibble, consultants, and airport personnel, including our Dr. Robin Sabata, the airport director. So be sure to stop by Wednesday, May 25th, between 3 and 5 at the Prescott Regional Airport Terminal, 6600 Airport Avenue. And thank you, and that's all I have for now.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. We'll now have a invocation from Rich Stoffen of the Pine Rock Church, followed by a Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Moore.
Good afternoon, Mayor. I just want to say I apologize for my attire. I came from the hospital. We had an accident on the campground, and I've been there for the last 4 hours, so I apologize. But will you join me in prayer? Father God, we thank you for the opportunity to come to you. We all desperately need you in our lives. We ask that you would lead and direct everything that happens today in this meeting. You are aware of the agenda, probably far more than they are. And so, Father, I pray that you would be with these men and women who have decisions to make. I pray that you would give them wisdom to make the right decisions and the courage to know the right decisions and the courage to make the right decisions. I thank you, Lord, for the opportunity that we have to live in such a beautiful place. And I thank you for your blessing here on each one of us. I pray, Lord, that as you do bless us, that we wouldn't hoard it for ourselves, but we would give it away to others. We ask this all in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Good.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Rusing.
Here.
Councilwoman Hall. Here. Councilman Montoya.
Here.
Councilman Moore.
Here.
Councilman Sischka.
Here.
And Councilman Tenney.
Yes.
All are present.
Thank you very much. We'll start off with proclamations. The first one will be Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month, presented by Councilman Tenney.
All righty, it is Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Month again. Do we have anybody here who is representing the group that will be receiving this proclamation? All right.
Got some riders up there.
Come on up. join us here. I'll read this really briefly, and then if you've got just a couple of brief remarks you'd like to make, you may. That is not required, however. So thanks for being with us today. All right, you're going to hear that the mayor is kind of a whereas guy, so here we go. Any others? Please.
The territory, that's right.
Come on, all you deadbeats.
Fantastic. Oh, this keeps getting better and better.
Should have said something earlier.
Great. You look terrific, just as is. This is great. All right. Whereas motorcycle riding is a popular form of recreation and transportation for over 325,000 people across Arizona and millions across our nation, and whereas the safe operation of a motorcycle requires the use of special skills developed through a combination of training and experience, and the use of good judgment and thorough knowledge of traffic laws and licensing requirements. And whereas it is important for drivers of all vehicles to be aware of one another and learn to share the road and practice courtesy, we'll let that one sink in for just a minute. And whereas motorcycles provide a means of transportation that uses fewer resources, causes less wear and tear on public roadways, and increases available parking areas, and whereas the safety hazards created by the automobile operators who have not been educated to watch for motorcyclists, I see some reactions here, okay, on the streets and highways of Arizona are a prime concern to motorcyclists. And whereas all motorcycle riders are encouraged to continue to hone their skills no matter how long they have been riding. And whereas it is important to recognize the need for awareness on the part of all drivers, especially with regard to sharing the road with motorcyclists, and to honor the many contributions motorcyclists make to the communities where they live and ride. Now, therefore, Phil Good, Mayor of the City of Prescott, invites the residents of the City of Prescott to join in recognizing the month of May as Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Month. I think we can have a hand for that. Is there a representative from your group who'd like to say a couple of words?
Not really.
It's optional. We won't force you into it.
I want to thank the mayor of Prescott for doing this. We have been riding the American Legion Riders, which are numerous ones, and we have a representative from ABATE, a brotherhood against, it used to be against totalitarian enactments. What's the true one now?
Come on now, you're gonna, I can slip you on the spot, are you saying?
Yeah. Still is. Still is? Okay. We've all been riding for a while. We care about all of you. And if you care about us, then everything will be fine. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good to see you, Kathy.
This is for you.
Good to see you, Steve. And I haven't had a chance to meet you yet, or Brandon, or, I've met him before. So thank you, everyone.
Can we get one real quick picture? And then we'll dismiss you back to the audience there.
Squeeze in your
Thanks for saving my hand. Thank you, gentlemen.
If I did. That's the only acronym I know.
All right, next we'll have a proclamation on Mental Health Awareness Month from Mayor Pro Tem Rusing.
Are there any representatives from the mental health community today that would like to come down?
Never saw a motorcycle parked outside the psychiatrist.
That's right, that's probably where they're
Mental health?
stepping up to
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Just one of you?
accepted by them.
Okay, well, that's all we need. Okay, whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and all Americans face challenges in life that can impact their mental health, especially during pandemics. And prevention is an effective way to reduce the burden of mental health conditions. And there are practical tools that all people can use to improve their mental health and be more resilient. Whereas mental health conditions are real and prevalent in our nation, and with effective treatment, those individuals with mental health conditions can recover and lead full, productive lives. Whereas businesses, schools, governmental agencies, healthcare providers, organizations, and citizens share the burden of mental health problems and have an obligation to promote mental health wellness and support prevention and treatment efforts. Now, therefore, Mayor Feelgood does hereby proclaim May 2022 as Mental Health Awareness Month in the city of Prescott and calls upon all citizens, governmental agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools in Prescott to commit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of mental health, the steps our citizens can take to protect their mental health, and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all people with mental health conditions. Would you like to say a few words and introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. Mary Dillinger, Prescott, VA. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and June is PTSD Awareness Month. So I do have some flyers in the back because we have a PTSD Awareness Walk. That's going to be at Peavine Trail on June 4th. So we hope to see as many people there as possible. You don't have to be a veteran. You just have to want to support PTSD. Same thing with mental health. Yes, mental health does affect a lot of our veterans, but it's not just our veterans, it's our whole community. So any support that you can provide would be greatly appreciated. And thank you to the mayor as always.
Thank you. Good luck. I'm going to stay because the next one is mine. Okay.
Good to see you, Mary. This proclamation really is intended to go out to the entire city, but thank you for, Mary, for being here to accept it.
And I have Becky and RJ also here.
Excellent. Appreciate it. Good to see you. Yeah, you'll see me on Monday for sure. All right, come on up, Sherm.
I asked him to say.
You might as well stay here for the entire meeting. You cover the whole gambit. Proclamation, Memorial Day, May 30th, 2022. Whereas it is essential to remember and renew the legacy of Memorial Day, which was established in 1868 to pay tribute to individuals who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to the United States and their families. And whereas on Memorial Day we pause to solemnly express gratitude and to pay tribute to the brave men and women who laid down their lives defending peace and freedom while in military service to our great nation. The fallen deserve nothing less from our grateful nation, and whereas we remember them with thankfulness and unwavering pride, and we are humbled because we remember that the wealth of this nation's heritage, the strength of its ideals, and the extent of its freedom came at the expense of American lives, a cost borne prominently by many generations whose bright futures, hopes, and dreams were sacrificed for the freedom and liberty that we all cherish. Now, therefore, the City of Prescott encourages all citizens to designate the minute beginning at 11 a.m. local time on May 30th, 2022, as a time for all Americans to observe the national moment of remembrance as passed by United States Public Law 106-579, and to remember that we must safeguard the legacies of our servicemen and women so that our children and our grandchildren will understand the sacrifices by our armed forces. So thank you. I'll make a few additional comments at the end of this meeting. But Memorial Day, as you can tell, has special meaning to me. As a combat veteran in Vietnam, I've had some very close friends and soldiers that made that sacrifice. And it's our obligation as citizens to remember and value that. So I'm proud to present this proclamation, and if anybody wants to make a comment, please do.
Hello, my name is Robert Jones. I'm the cemetery representative for the Prescott National Cemetery, and I want to thank the mayor and all citizens for allowing us to do this ceremony. It has been 2 years since the cemetery has had that chance. I am not originally from here. I am actually an Omahan that transitioned here, but I do believe it is time to re-acknowledge the service and sacrifice that all veterans have given. Being a combat veteran as myself from the Iraq and Afghanistan war, I would not be here today if it wasn't for my fellow comrades. And that's one reason why I do this passionately, and I want to thank everybody for giving us the opportunity to get back into normalcy, to have service and have recognition for their service. Thank you.
Hello again, everybody. So thank you to the mayor as always for recognizing Memorial Day. He always makes it a point to attend, of course, and he is right. Memorial Day is something that I know is near and dear to your heart. Actually, every one of us up here are veterans. As you know, most of the community is that way. So it is a big deal, so thank you. And if you want to know one thing that you could do for veterans on Memorial Day, if you can't go to the Memorial Day ceremony, don't say Happy Memorial Day. Please. That's not what it's about. It's not where you thank myself or the mayor, because that's Veterans Day. Memorial Day is where we remember those who we lost. So if you want to know something that you can do, that's what you can do, is help us remember those. And if you can go to the ceremony, by all means, it'll be a really beautiful ceremony at the Prescott National Cemetery at 11 a.m. on the 30th. And then Citizens is having their ceremony at 09 on the same day if you want to go to both. For the one at Prescott National Cemetery, it's right across the street from the VA, and we'll have parking at the VA. So you park at the VA, and we have shuttles that will bring you over, or you can walk. It's a very, very short walk right across the street, little walkway. It's very safe, but if you want to wait for the shuttles, you can also do that. Thank you again, sir.
Thanks, you.
Stay for the picture here.
Anybody want a copy of this? You got one, right?
This way. Yes.
Thank you very much.
There's some flyers for the ceremony also on the back here.
And everybody, please understand that when you thank a member of the military for their service, they need to also thank you for the opportunity to serve. So thank you very much.
All right, we'll move on to the open call to the public.
The City of Prescott welcomes public engagement. Residents may comment and address council regarding matters not posted on the agenda during the open call to the public. If you wish to speak, please complete a green speaker card and submit it to me prior to the start of the meeting. As a reminder, speakers are limited to 4 minutes, and the call to the public will be limited to 40 minutes in total. I do have one public speaker card from Tom Rusing.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Since it's not Memorial Day, I would like to thank Phil, Mayor Good, and all of the veterans for their service. That was a moving recognition. Thank you. I have two comments to make. First, as chairman of the Dells and in behalf of our organization and followers, I would like to thank the Prescott City Council staff, especially the Park and Recs Department, but also the leadership of Prescott Valley and the County Board of Supervisors for their recent approval of an IGA with the purpose of securing state trust land on Glassford Hill. One of Save the Dells' initial two goals was the creation of a Granite Dells Regional Park and Preserve. The other goal was preserving the iconic core 500 acres of the Granite Dells. This was essentially accomplished with the AED annexation agreement. This, along with other land acquisitions the city has made and the land the IGA is designated to acquire, represents significant progress towards reaching the goal of a regional park and preserve. I would also ask that Save the Dells be considered a stakeholder in this project and be included in discussions and decisions regarding the regional park. In addition, this is an example of the benefits of regional cooperation addressing issues that are important to the citizens of the region. Regional cooperation is essential if we are to solve the challenging issues that we face going forward. Finally, fostering more regional cooperation is part of Save the Dells' greater mission as we move forward as an organization. Thank you for that. My second comment is a little more serious, and this is being made as a private citizen and is related to a water storage and transportation infrastructure project in the Deepwell Ranch development. It is my understanding that the initial cost of the project was estimated to be in the range of $77 million. However, recently it appears that the project may have been split into two parts of around $38 million. My concern is this: the citizens passed previously a Proposition 401, the Taxpayer Protection Initiative, that stated that any project greater than $40 million would need to be taken to the taxpayers for approval. The way this project is being handled seems to be bypassing the intent of the proposition and the citizens of Prescott. I may be missing something, but I do feel that citizens deserve an explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rusey. Have
That's all,
anyone
Mayor.
else? Very good. We will now move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have an item that they wish to pull from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda items 8A through 8D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Right, item 9 is a consent ordinance.
All right,
Read
bear with
that,
me. I've got a lot of titles to read. Adoption of ordinance number 2022-1796, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, extending and increasing the corporate limits of the city of Prescott by annexing approximately 2.05 acres of residentially zoned land, generally located along Cathedral Pines Drive in Yavapai County, Arizona, into the city of Prescott and assigning a zoning classification thereto. Adoption of ordinance number 2022-1797, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, extending and increasing the corporate limits of the city of Prescott by annexing approximately 6.16 acres of residentially zoned land, generally located east of Gurley Street and south of Overland Road in Yavapai County, Arizona, into the city of Prescott and assigning a zoning classification thereto. Adoption of ordinance number 2022-1798, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending the zoning of certain property within the city of Prescott, generally located east of Gurley Street and south of Overland Road, from residential single-family SF35 to multifamily MFH. And adoption of ordinance number 2022-1799, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, authorizing the transfer of property to effectuate terms of open space donations pursuant to City of Prescott Purchase Agreement number 2012-067.
Congratulations, City Clerk. That was very impressive. Does anybody want to pull any of these consent ordinance items?
We did have one public comment, Mayor, if you'd like to take it on item
Go
B.
ahead. On item B?
Lucinda Grant.
Hello. I did send something to the city council and the mayor here about this already. This is my little letter that I'm concerned about generally, a citywide development problem. This is also a national issue about mobile home parks and how if we're going into rezoning, we could be going into redevelopment. And I'm concerned about how this is in some other areas. I'm afraid for what might happen. Some of these are trailer parks, and trailer park sites are very small for travel trailers, and you can just haul them off, and it's easy. But some of these trailers are older than 1976 and fall under the HUD rules, and we have a problem where we can't all, just upgrade everything to HUD standards and move out. Some of these homes have been built in. They're built over the porch entirely, so it's like now a double wide, and you can't just, cut the thing in half and haul it as two pieces. And these are huge, these take the Mack truck, and it isn't easy to haul. It's the oversized load and all of that. There are several $1,000 available through the state, like $4,000 available through the state to haul these away. The problem is, if we have to all move out of here because of a redevelopment that may come up, what do we do? Because first of all, you can't just haul these into another trailer park. The trailer parks are mostly all full everywhere, and you can't get the large lot spaces anymore. So then we have a problem. First, we have to get the HUD sticker, and you have to redevelop the mobile. If you own the mobile, you have to upgrade it. And I've heard that this includes making the windows bigger in the bedrooms because of fire code and things like that. So this is not a small and inexpensive project. And so then you've got the cost of redeveloping the mobile home. You've got to get the HUD sticker. You've got to find another place to put it, but there's mostly nowhere to move it that's a rental. So then, if you have to buy a lot and develop the lot, that's the septic tank, the utility hookup for the electric that you might have to get the poles put in for and drill a well. We don't have all this money here. This is the poor. And this is a national problem. I've seen this on page 1 of the Arizona Republic in the last few years. This is what happens when they say, okay, you got to get all evicted and get out of here.
Ms. Grant, can you conclude your comments, please?
We need a law here in this city. It's got to be citywide, that we need fair market value for the property that we're on. We're renting the space, we own the home. We need fair market value in place for our mobile home. And this is like eminent domain in a way, because it's talking about, you have a home and the train is going through. I'm sorry, sir?
Please conclude your comments.
Yeah, this eminent domain is sort of like this, where we're talking about you've got a home and the train is going to come through, so somebody's got to move because, it's got to happen, and so they had to get fair market value. So this is another place where we need to have fair market value for the housing that we can't move, and it should be an optional thing that we should do. I want to put it through the city attorney as an ordinance that we have the right to do this if we have no other way to move. Thank you, sir.
City Attorney, first of all, I want to say that I did get your letter, and I did have it looked into. So I think our City Attorney has the ability to respond to some of your concerns.
Thanks, Mayor. And I think as the speaker has noted, there is an existing state statute under Arizona Revised Statute 33-1476 in and around that area. And it's called the, I want to get the name right, the Mobile Home Parks Residential Landlord Tenant Act. So the state has already kind of exempted the field in this and has provided certain protections to tenants in mobile home parks. And I think there was a mention of a $4,000 moving assistance. Arizona Revised Statute 147602 allows up to, I think, $10,000 of moving costs through something called a relocation fund. And the relocation fund is something required by law where certain money is put into a certain fund to help defray costs. So if a mobile home is relocated within 50 miles of the existing location, then the homeowner can get actual moving expenses up to $10,000. And if they abandon the mobile home, you get 1/4 of the maximum allowable moving expense. So there is some protection in state law. Now, the proposition that the city can create a law that says private citizen, ex-property owner of the mobile home park, you have to buy somebody else's property, is likely unconstitutional under the Enumerated Powers Clause of the United States.
Some of these properties are unmovable. They're built in.
I understand, but you're asking us to create a law that's unconstitutional, in my opinion.
Fair housing is not unconstitutional.
Mayor, a new ordinance is not agendized.
Yeah.
So those are just some of my initial thoughts on this, Mayor. I think the request is probably beyond something we can do lawfully.
Right, so the bottom line is there are some protections available for mobile home park tenants, but as far as anything that the city could do to create such an unconstitutional statute or ordinance is just not likely. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Oh, I would just like to clarify for everyone that the speaker is a resident of Cactus Ranch, and that's one reason why she has many concerns. And our council did address a concern of the investor coming in and maybe selling the park and everyone being evicted and then the park turning into an apartment complex or something. But we were assured that we had taken all measures possible to address that, and maybe our legal department can clarify that.
Sure. The rezoning that was associated with the park tied the rezoning to the site plan that was presented. So if they do a change of use in the future, they've got to run the entire project back through our Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. And I don't think I was speaking out of turn. If there is such a move, this council probably won't be very appreciative of that, given the representations that were made by the mobile home park owner that they want to continue using this as a mobile home park. So I don't know if that gives you any comfort, but they will have to come back for any change of use beyond what's already been approved on the site plan, which shows the existing homes, basically.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, I would just like to stress that Prescott's dotted with many of these older mobile home parks throughout our community. It's part of our character, and they're very important for low-income, affordable, and also workforce housing. And we would like to keep them the way they are. They are a very important asset for our community. Thank you.
All right, I think we've addressed that issue. Can we move forward? I'll entertain a motion here.
Mayor, I move to adopt consent ordinances items 9A through 9D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, now we'll move on to something relevant here, a liquor license.
Public hearing and consideration for a new Series 3 microbrewery liquor license application from Jeffrey Allen Hart, applicant for Heart of 10 Brewing LLC, location 318 West Gurley Street. The application fees have been paid and the signs have been posted for the required 20 days. Staff has reviewed the applications and determined that they are in compliance. No public comments have been received.
Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir.
Come on up.
Good afternoon, sir.
Great, it's interesting to find out what your plans are here. Can you just describe a little bit of what you're hoping to do?
So I'm trying to keep with the hometown feeling. I'm trying to inspire a local community spot. Haven't speaking in a while. I'm trying to create a public spot for local people to come down and just talk to each other. There's not going to be a TV. There's going to be no games. I'm going to encourage communal seating, not sitting by yourself in a corner on your phones. My intent is to move forward and get back to talking to our neighbors and being with each other and over sharing a pint of beer, pretty much is what I'm trying to.
Well, good luck to you. It sounds like a slightly different utilization of a microbrewery.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, I would just like to ask, looks like you're going to be located on the Granite Creek corridor. Are you going to have any outdoor seating or anything to link to the corridor?
So I currently have an outdoor patio that was already there and existing when I took over the space. There are stairs moving down that are open to the patio or the creek already. I just plan to revamp that and make sure everything's safe to walk up and down those stairs still, because a couple of the bricks are kind of wonky, but I'll fix all that. But yes, I have also reached out with my architect that she is doing a phase 2 plan for me once I'm up and running, and a couple years down the line, I'm going to put it to the city if I can build a balcony on the side of that building overlooking the creek itself to try to improve the aesthetics of everything out there.
Very nice. Thank you for investing in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Hart.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Mayor, I move to approve liquor license number 168803 for a new Series 3 microbrewery liquor license application for Heart of 10 Brewing LLC, location 318 West Curly Street.
Second.
A motion and second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the regular agenda.
Presentation and discussion regarding update to general plan and formation of the general plan committee.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Bryn Stotler, Director of Community Development. Pleased to be here today to introduce the General Plan Update 2025. As most of you are aware, and maybe some of the public is not, by statute, we update our general plan, which is a high-level plan that addresses land uses and a number of other community functions and features. We have to do that every 10 years. The last update was completed in 2014, adopted by the voters in 2015. So we are getting ready to resume that process. And the planning team and I have been busy putting together outlines and approaches, but we wanted to review this particular timeline with the council today. The first function of the general plan update is to establish a committee. That committee, historically speaking, has included 2 council liaisons, 1 appointee per council member from the general public, 2 P&Z commissioners, planning and zoning commissioners, 1 Board of Adjustment member, and something we haven't had in the past but we think is important to include is a member from our Historic Preservation Commission. The constitution of the committee, as I mentioned, will be determined by council selections. And we've started to roll out this intro at our public meetings with Planning and Zoning Commission and other Citizens Academy, among others, to let the public know that they have an opportunity to be a part of this process. What we've asked them to do is approach a council member of their choosing to express their interest to be on the general plan committee. So you may be receiving some of those independent inquiries because we've started to talk about this process. Through our preparation for this meeting, there has been some suggested criteria for the general plan committee, and interested parties should be a resident of the city of Prescott, have been a resident of the city of Prescott for a minimum of 5 years, have a general understanding of the current general plan and the components of a general plan, and have the ability to describe what areas of the general plan they might be most suited to contribute content to. In the fall, we'll begin the meetings, but in July, this first bullet point, the council will adopt a resolution that establishes the committee. So between now and then, if members of the public are interested in participating and they fall outside of those boards and commissions that we mentioned, they may approach you for that purpose. And what we would ask is that they provide those inquiries to you in writing so that we can track them and have everybody's contact information. In the fall, we intend to start the meetings. Oh, back up one second. The resolution in July will also adopt a public participation plan, basically an engagement strategy for the public. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we move on here.
Excuse me, Brent, but
Sure.
Councilman Tenney, did you want to ask a question before we moved on to those other steps?
If I could, I didn't mean to interrupt. I appreciate the good presentation. So if I heard you correctly, the appointees from the various council members were looking for someone who's been a resident of the city for 5 years?
Minimum.
Yes. Or more.
Or more, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that important clarification. That wasn't lost on me. According to our city charter, council members and the mayor only need to have been a resident of the city for 1 year. Perhaps you can count on that, or you can comment on that dichotomy for me.
This is suggested criteria that, as I understand it, came forward through a meeting with Sarah and the mayor. So I would invite the mayor
I
to
think it's a
comment.
great idea, personally, to have at least 5 years, but there certainly is a dichotomy between what we require of our elected officials and these folks who would comment on that. Mayor, do you have thoughts?
Well, I just think that with 5 years of residency, you'd have a better understanding of what the city of your residence has done, and especially if we're recommending that you're making plans for 10 years going out.
No question.
That you have a more fundamental basis rather than the very minimal requirements for being an elected official.
Okay. Maybe that's worth noting next time we look at our city charter.
Thank you for that question, Councilman Tenney.
I do not disagree at all, by the way. We might look at even more than 5 years at some point.
So with the resolution that will be adopted in July, we'll get the committee's activities underway. We intend to start meetings in the fall, and they will be open meetings. They will be public meetings. We will have a review of the 2015 plan and the primary elements within that plan. We will establish an updated outline for the 2025 plan. We'll also research new plan elements, some that have been suggested right here in this council chambers, such as climate resiliency and sustainability. So we'll be looking at some new elements that haven't been included in our plans historically. Throughout 2023, we'll really just get the committee up and running in the fall of 2022, get everybody familiar and have a working outline. But throughout 2023, we'll have a lot of public engagement and the committee will really focus in on its task. We'll have either a page on the city website or a separate general plan website, depending on what Nate does with the city website. We will also craft some community surveys to determine beyond the stakeholder group what's important to the community. And we will also commence research and writing. With that, I'm going to invite George Worley, our planning manager, to come up and talk a bit about the public engagement piece.
Thank you, Brent. So the public engagement is an important part, but before I get there, in regard to Councilman Tenney's suggestion of 5 years, I think we're also going to require the committee members have to remain living here for 5 years after so that they can benefit or suffer with the rest
I don't know
of
if we
us.
can do that, but it's a nice idea. Yeah.
One of the key points of any general plan, because it's supposed to represent the citizens of the community that's developing it, is public engagement. That means going out and asking people what their issues are, what they think we should focus differently on, or what we're doing good with what we have. We'll start that engagement with the committee. The very first act of the committee will be an evaluation of the 2015 plan and help us coalesce into a reasonable list, what do we need to do differently? What do we need to fix? What do we need to improve? What do we need to add? What do we need to take out? Once we've gotten a little further along, as Bren said, the public engagement part means we go out to the public and ask all of those same things. And we do it through multiple public meetings. We do it through Zoom. We do it through the use of surveys. We want to hear from everybody. We got very good responses, both in the 2001 plan, was ultimately approved in 2003, and the 2015 plan from the public. They participated a lot in the process. And as a result, both of those plans were approved by the voters in the 80+% range of approvals. Pretty good. Most cities in the state are more like 60% approval rating for their plans. So we think it's very important to get out there and get people involved. Part of that process will involve also the public bodies that will review parts of the document. The Planning Commission pays a big piece of this process. We bring elements to them. We bring the entire plan to them in draft form in various times to get their input. All of their meetings are public meetings. They're broadcast, they're advertised. We rely on the press, the Courier, radio and newspaper spots to try and bring people in on that process. So again, we need a lot of public engagement to help us with this. I think with that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have. And I do want to point out that between myself and these two young ladies, if you would stand up, don't just wave. This is your planning division for the city of Prescott. So we will be deeply involved. The planning division will have a key person who will facilitate all the way through. The rest of us will rotate in and out as necessary or to help in the background. And we also have some interns and volunteers who can help us along the way. What we want to do is to have the committee not worry about writing. The committee is to give us ideas and to bounce ideas off of. So when we come up with something good that we've borrowed, almost said stolen, from another community, planners do that. If I steal from another planner, they appreciate it. We want the committee to be able to bounce that back to us before we go out to the public or go to the Planning Commission so that we know we're on the right track. These folks will help with that, and we will process it through, hopefully. I also have at least 2 folks back here that I know who want to be on the committee. So I now know of 3 people who want to be on the committee. And I know I did send someone to see Councilman Tinney at the Citizens Academy who has expressed an interest. This is a great opportunity for people to participate in the future of their city. Now's the time to do it.
Thank you, George. That was one of the reasons why I suggested that not only the applicants who meet that residency minimum also indicate what areas of interest or expertise that they'd like to participate in, because there are a number of cohorts within the planning document that in the past we've had like subcommittees look into areas like transportation and growth boundaries and different things like that. So we hope that we can attract not only people that have a general interest, but maybe be able to provide some additional experience or expertise to make this plan as effective as it can be. Councilman Montoya.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few questions, and I apologize, Bren. These are not questions that I sent to you in email. A couple of them are anyways. My first one, George, you talked about the public outside, doing public approach to it. I'm wondering if you guys have given any thought to doing a roadshow, so to speak, and going to different neighborhoods within the community to kind of, go to HOA groups and things like that. Is that part of the process as well?
It is part of, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
It is part of the process. We did multiple road shows. Basically, what we do is look for a location in a particular neighborhood that we can have a larger group involved in it. Take the whole process there, ask them the questions, show them the documents, show them the maps, and get feedback. That's likely to occur 3, 4, 5 times throughout the process in different areas.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. So I just assumed that was part of it, but I wanted to verify that. The other thing that occurred to me, I think one of the Board of Adjustment meetings before the end of last year, the planning department kind of started rolling out some changes that you guys were suggesting for the land development code. I'm thinking of like some of the LED lighting changes that you talked about, the removal of a special use permit for tattoo parlor shops, and I don't remember what the other component that was off the top of my head. And I'm just wondering if there's greater revisions to the land development code that are going to be addressed within the general plan. I think one of the things that I think about is frequently there's concerns about things getting shoehorned into business general or even multifamily high density, and I'm wondering if those are things that you guys as the planning department have looked at.
Well, we're always looking at those things. What I'll say about that is that getting to that level of granularity with zoning designations and so forth, it'll be discussed, but this process sort of departs from that level of detail. We'll talk about land uses generally. We'll talk about commercial corridors. We'll talk about airport protection, lots of new topics to touch on. But as far as zoning and the code, that's kind of a different discussion. The land development code is a separate vehicle, and it has to be amended in a different way.
Fair enough. And then the last question I'll ask you, you touched on climate resiliency, and I'm curious if you can talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I think that we've seen that topic come up repeatedly, and I think that we're seeing that being added to general plans across our state. While it's not one of the called out areas in the statute, the statute predates the concern, the greater concern that has grown.
So when you say you see other communities calling it out, what does it look like when they do that?
I think the CLEMAS study that we may be looking at moving forward with would be a great foundational piece of data and just local knowledge to have and incorporate into the plan. But to be honest, this is new for this planning division.
No, I'm glad. I guess that's what I was driving at by asking that question, is I'm curious if that is the type of thing that would further help the general plan within that concern. Is this climate study we're looking at?
Absolutely. We're always looking for new data sets. We're pleased that the Census Bureau has finally come out with some final numbers, or what we think are final numbers, this month. And so demographics largely drive the backdrop of the general plan update. So yes.
Thank you for indulging my non-pre-screened questions.
Absolutely.
Councilman Moore.
Just a simple question. I was looking at establishing the committee, and you were talking about how citizens could get involved. How large can the committee be, or how many people could be on the committee eventually? Is there any limit?
What we have represented up here is a committee of 13.
Committee of 13.
So we're talking about one appointee from the general public per council member.
Per council member.
And then our boards and commissions would be a little bit differently, and we'll talk as we get a little bit further down the road on how those designations will be made. Also, there have been 2 council liaisons in the past, so 2 council members that worked intimately with the process.
Great, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, I'd just like to comment that the city of Prescott has many talented individuals with a lot of expertise. So I hope that we get a broad-based group of citizens on this committee that will have a full spectrum of ideas for the vision for the future of Prescott. And I'd also like to remind everyone that this is a general plan. It's not a legal document, and it can be amended, or prior councils have done it in the past. They have totally ignored it. So unfortunately, that's the reality of the situation, and I just wanted to ask everyone to keep that in mind.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Any other concerns? I guess
We
we
have some
can.
public comment.
Public comment. Thank you very much.
Daniel Mattson.
Good afternoon, everybody. Here's my copy of the general plan as it was completed. I'm the only person who went to every single meeting for the last one. 4 years of meetings. So this is a general plan, not a specific plan. So when you ask questions about, does this plan determine things with precision? No, it's general guidance. And it is supposed to be a document that, the
the citizens of the community are laying out the plan that we want the council to follow. So, yeah, it's not legally binding, but it is something that's much appreciated. I first moved here in 1978, went to Prescott High School, moved away for 28 years, and I've been back for 14. Owned a home for 3, which I plan on, frankly, I fear they'll bury me here. So I would like to be on the plan committee. And also, this is what we ended up with, 113 pages plus some maps. What we started out with, the 2003 plan, was a thick binder. What was it, 400 pages or something like 300? 250, okay. Well, we cut it in half. Yeah, okay. I've been through every single page of this. It's been a while. I think we can make the language a little easier to be understood by non-lawyers. I think there is some work we can do to refine it, and of course, things have changed, so it needs some updating, and I would be happy to be involved in that. And as far as I know a lot about the low-income community, having been the supervisor at the winter shelter last 3 years in a row, part of Granite Creek Hunger Ministry, so I know a lot about parks. I used to work for Parks and Recreation, and I am now chairman of the board of Yavapai Regional Transit, so I think I can bring some expertise to the transportation element, the circulation element. So I'm looking forward to this getting started. I hope we can do it in that timetable. I would like to point out that the last time, even though we were doing 2 meetings a month, we still overshot the plan, the planned length of the meetings. So I hope this is enough time to get it done right. So thank you, and looking forward to it.
Thank you, Mr. Mattson.
Gary Worob.
Gary Worob, resident of Prescott, 16 years today. So I think I qualify.
Check the first box.
And I vote for Daniel. Daniel was the only one to show up every time. So thank you, Daniel. He was very profound with helping us. My comment is I have a problem with what we did last time, and I served on the general plan, that I don't want to see this time. We did not have any representation from the departments, either department heads or representatives. So I think we were winging it with what do we need for the future of Prescott. I would like to see this time a representative from each department talk about where they are, where they want to go, and how to get there, and how we can put that in the general plan so the public is aware of that. I think that's extremely important. The 2001 plan, 2003, had very little on open space trails. 2015, George Sheets and I, the late George Sheets and I, formed a committee with Joe Baines, Chris Hossing, and said, this is really important because for every $1 invested in outdoor recreation, there's a $3 return. It's higher in Prescott. It's economic development, and it had no face in the previous general plan. So we formed a committee, and we did a 10-year plan that was successful in 6 years. And you see the results. We're one of the top destination places in the United States. Those are the kind of things that make a general plan important to the public. We had very little representation from the public. Daniel was there every time, but at most, I think we had 3 or 4 people. I think we need a huge outreach to the public to determine their future. So thank you.
Mayor, if you'll indulge me to ask a question, Gary, I just want to clarify something you're suggesting. Are you suggesting that a department member be part of the committee, or are you suggesting that they provide input to the committee?
They provide input. I want to say something that's probably out of bounds. Chris Hosking is one of the greatest trail designers in this country, if not in the world. We are so successful. Not once has Chris been asked to come before council and determine what his needs are. I chair the Greater Prescott Outdoor Fund, a not-for-profit for getting people outdoors, and we ask Chris all the time. Yesterday, we discovered we have a terrible trailer that causes accidents with the Greater Prescott Outdoor Fund. My group is looking to fund that. I think it should come from the city. But his needs are not being met because they're not being addressed publicly.
I appreciate that clarification.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Any other public comments?
That's all, Mayor.
All right, well, thank you very much for the presentation. We'll move on to the next item, which I believe is a legislative update.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Tyler Goodman with the City Manager's Office, and I wish I had more news for you this time around, but unfortunately, they are still talking budget. I know, I've said that the last 2 or 3 meetings, I think. They're working diligently on it, but a lot of what comes into play is the Arizona Water Authority, and the governor has expressed that he would like to see some forward momentum on that prior to even acknowledging a budget or looking at it seriously. So that's where we are currently. Everything else is pretty much stagnant except for House Bill 2609, the Ambulance Services Bill. That is the bill that makes changes to the Certificate of Necessity process, and it would affect how ambulance services can be pursued in rural areas, and it grants fire departments or districts temporary authority to provide needed ambulance service if service is lacking. It had passed the House. That had happened a couple months ago, I believe. It recently, in the past week, passed the Senate, and it was amended, so it has to go back to the House for concurrence. The amendment required several things. The first is that an ambulance service provider would have to post response time data on their website. And second, it would require that response times must be reviewed and updated based on financial impacts on rates and changes every 6 years. And it makes an eligible hospital as an interested party for certificate of necessity hearings. So that was the amendment. Everything else in the bill has remained the same from the beginning. And again, if it gets concurrence back in the House, then it will be sent on to the governor.
Councilman Montoya.
Tyler, I guess maybe you just answered this, but what do you think the likelihood of success of this bill is?
It looks like it's going to pass. It had unanimous votes in the House, except for a few missed votes, and same in the Senate. Overall, I don't think there's really significant pushback, so it'll probably be signed.
Can you, and maybe this is a question better for our fire department, but like what would the implications for the city of Prescott be if this passes?
For us, it really would depend on what the council would want to pursue. I think mostly the impact in our region would be for the fire district, having a much more...
You're talking about CAFMA?
Yes, that's correct. CAFMA, the Central Arizona Fire and Medical Authority. They have a much broader district geographically, square miles, and it is more rural. They have been pushing for something like this to be able to provide ambulance service if response times are lacking in their jurisdiction. We don't quite have that issue here in the city. So at this point, I don't think we would change anything or have that need.
Thank you.
I'm happy to answer any other questions that there might be.
Well, I think Governor Ducey did sign a bill yesterday or Friday regarding the restriction of mandatory COVID vaccines for public school students. And I think there was also a reference to mandatory mask mandates in that bill as well.
Yes, that is true. Those did pass.
All right, any other questions or concerns? Let's hope the budget resolves itself. I know I'm on the working group for the Arizona Water Authority bill. Originally, when it came out, it was 60 pages with very little detail. So now there's just been a revised version of it. It's gone to 90 pages. They're proposing it be called the Arizona Water Augmentation Authority. So there's still a lot of concerns about exactly how much authority this authority would have. Would it supersede the concerns of many of the rural counties that are trying to manage their water, including our Prescott AMA? And how much authority would then be utilized to benefit the primary economic development centers of Maricopa County and Pima County? And we've already seeing the first reductions in agricultural water distribution in Pinal County. So I think there's a lot of detail that needs to be clarified before it's likely that this authority is created and then funded. So we'll just have to watch that very closely.
Yes, we will.
Mayor, you do have public comment on this item. Tom Rusing.
I had a question. Is this Senate Bill 1611? Is that what this is focused on? Is that a different bill than the Water Authority?
I believe that is the correct number, yes.
1611, yes, it is.
So, we heard about this through multiple organizations I'm involved in, but I think a lot of us, including CWAG, have serious concerns about this. I'm really happy that Phil, Mayor Good, is a member or involved in it. But I think it has potentially serious implications for rural communities, and I hope that the rural communities can pull together to outweigh the significant benefits to the major metropolitan areas in the South. So anyway, thanks.
Anything else?
No, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goodman. All right, we now will move on to item, what is it, 10C?
10C, consideration of approval of 11C, thank you. Climate risk assessment by Climate Assessment for the Southwest CLIMAS and Dr. Allison Meadow with the University of Arizona. And staff does not have a presentation on this. This was a council request.
Okay, thank you. Is there someone from Protect that would like to come up and speak?
Probably. Thank you.
Hello, Patrick.
But I will make it brief because we appreciate the time you gave us at the study session on April 26th. And I'm here with some supporters as well as my colleague Kaya Hayes. Just real quickly, we've really had an ambitious grassroots campaign to seek out new allies and supporters seeking common ground in this climate conversation. And I would highlight Prescott Audubon Society, League of Women Voters, the Prescott Fire Department, and the chief's comments on April 26th, recent engagements and conversations with PV and Chino Valley, and also a very recent conversation with the relatively new director of the Yavapai County Office of Emergency Management. All agree that their mission and work and our community would benefit from the Quad Cities Climate Risk Assessment. The lens of climate change will impact their planning and their operations. I might add, just as we actually heard a few moments ago, this was already in my script, was that we had heard shortly after earlier presentations that city staff did see an opportunity for this risk assessment to impact the deliberations of the general plan, as the director pointed out a few moments ago. So this assessment, we think, sets the foundation for a longer-term strategy of climate actions around adaptation and resiliency. Some of the questions the mayor had at the last meeting, where have you seen some successes? And if you'd like to explore that a little bit more, at the mayor's prompting, we did some further research if you have questions today. We think it's an economic investment in our future. Again, we're so gratified with your support and putting it on the council agenda in 2022. We are so grateful for, candidly, the work that we did on our own to secure support from CLIMAS. And with conversations that we had with Councilwoman Rusing, it became a real priority for us. And we think this is a meaningful first step on our way towards climate resiliency.
Councilman Montoya.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few questions. These may be questions that Patrick or Mr. Grady is not capable of answering, so no offense.
Okay.
One of my question was, I understand there's no financial cost to the city of Prescott for this study that's being done, which is great. I'm happy to hear that. I guess my question is, there is some engagement of staff that's going to have to happen
Absolutely.
for this. And I'm trying to get an assessment of what level of that involvement will staff have to have, what departments will have to be involved, because their time isn't free either, right? So we're
Correct.
paying those folks. And so to get some idea of the scope of that and the cost, and again, that might be a question more appropriate for the city manager, not Mr. Grady necessarily.
I think some of it's yet to be determined based on the size and scope of your efforts.
Yes.
I would assume that you'll need assistance from Community Development Department, the Public
Yes.
Works Department.
Yes,
my
fire
office,
department.
Fire Department.
Absolutely.
What might be valuable to council is if you guys could, articulate how much time you think that looks like. And
Okay.
if you're not ready to today, since we're kind of hitting you on the spot, just kind of get back with us.
Well, let me make a couple of preliminary comments. So we proposed at the April 26th study session the formation of a working group that would include some stakeholders, but also, as you're rightfully pointing out, city staffs, not just from Prescott, but from Chino Valley as well as Prescott Valley. So it is a Quad Cities regional risk assessment. And based on our conversations with Dr. Meadow, we believe that this process may last 3 or 4 months. I would posit that we're likely looking at maybe 1 meeting a month during that timeline, frankly, just simply to secure input from the fire chief, from the Yavapai County Office of Emergency Management, from the planning director, from the city managers of our various communities, so that data needs, which is what this report is focused on, data needs can be identified and integrated into the climate risk assessment.
And that clarification is really helpful for me because, again, to me, we just saw that like we're undertaking a general plan document that's going to take maybe 4 years if we're lucky. So,
exactly.
So I appreciate kind of a little bit more context around that part of it. I guess the other question I have is, you alluded to other stakeholders, and it sounds like there's other stakeholders in other communities like Chino Valley, I assume Prescott Valley and the county are part of that as well. Are there other stakeholders that you've identified that aren't necessarily municipalities that would you bring into this process?
Well, we would like some representation of the Protect campaign. I think it would be useful to have POWIC representation as another stakeholder in the community. Perhaps Yavapai County representation through the health department. I think oftentimes the impacts of climate on health conditions within our community are overlooked or silent. So we would obviously also invite input from City Council as to other organizations that you think might have a stake in this conversation and want to be a part of that review process, which is basically what it will be, a review process of what CLEMAS wants to do, proposes to do.
Right, and so that kind of ties into my last question for you, which is, what are specific and deliverable outcomes that you think will come from this study potentially? And I know that's probably a loaded question because you don't have the data yet, but in other communities that have used this tool, what have been specific deliverable outcomes that have come about from it?
I think the single most important deliverable outcome is the data. An understanding, in effect, like we've talked about before, a common ground that we're creating through this science-based research that will identify what are those long-term impacts of the drought, of potential flooding events, potential wildfire events, and hotter temperatures, and how that might affect different sectors of our community. So that's the primary deliverable, is information. But to the point that was made earlier about the general plan, we want to take that 3 or 4 month process and encourage more citizen engagement as well, and looking at solutions and potential actions that other best practice communities have undertaken. So again, this sets the foundation for future action.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a few comments. We're all aware that we're in a severe drought and we're having higher temperatures and we're entering into a period of an environmental crisis. And we need science-based data in order to be prepared. And for example, we have the Citizens Water Advocacy Group. They've been very valuable in helping me personally approaching water with a science-based, facts based in hydrology and geology concerning conservation. And then we have the WRM, the Water Resource Management Model, that we've instituted in our water policy to help us better manage our water, and that is all data-driven. And also, I look at this as maybe this is the beginning of a future relationship with more projects with the U of A to benefit our community. And I think our goal is so that we can grow sustainably and maintain our quality of life. And we need to address this situation. So I completely support this project.
Councilman Shishka, did you have a question?
I'm good.
Change your mind?
Mayor, I had a question if you'd indulge me. Is the county a signed-on participant or partner already?
The county itself?
Yes.
No, we've been monitoring their progress on their own general plan, and they've proposed, for example, to have a Yavapai County Climate Action Plan. It's still a part of their proposal.
But separate from what you guys are doing?
I don't think so. I think that it will be easy to link into since they're largely dealing with unincorporated communities.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You may want to, you may have done this already, but engage the Yavapai Prescott Indian Tribe, which is another large governmental entity within the region.
Thank you. Excellent
Very
thought.
helpful.
Thank you.
Well, I will say that I did some research, and I printed off the 44-page climate profile for the Verde Valley. I also checked with the city of Cottonwood and the mayor there to find out if this assessment that they put together really was able to generate any legitimate recommendations. And for the most part, I just found out that it's kind of a resource material to be utilized if and when they want to take this data information and either incorporate it into a general plan or some other recommendation. I also talked to the city of Sedona and their 35-page report, which they have taken some action with the expectation that they're going to try to be completely carbon neutral by 2030. And they actually brought on board a paid intern to work on not only the report, but to start coming up with a series of steps for them to be able to achieve that type of carbon neutral, or I think they want to have all of their vehicles electric and some other things like that. So Sedona actually had to spend some dollars to put together some planning individual for their particular consequence to this profile. So I think without having the council having to commit any financial resources to this program, it might have some value as a resource material for our general plan. A lot of it's based on modeling, and as long as we don't have to commit too much staff time to pull the data together, and from what I saw in this profile, I think that probably would be relatively minimal. So I think from that perspective, we can probably utilize such a profile assessment and then be able to provide it to our neighbors if they can find value in it as well. So those are my comments on it. Councilman Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I think what would be most important and helpful to us as a city is that the profile also provides actionable, recommendations for not just the city, but for the Quad City area, things that are actionable that we can incorporate into a general plan and that we can take action on as a mayor and council moving forward, how we could better protect our community against climate change.
Thank you. We definitely agree with that. If you look, and thank you, Mayor, for reading that report. If you look at the last few pages of the profile, there's 4 or 5 pages devoted to potential actions and solutions that can happen in Sedona and the Verde Valley. But it was generated solely by CLEMAS. We want it to be more citizen-led, so we've already started some research, again at the mayor's prompting, looking at what are some of those specific things that we can do. And so, yes, we think that process of the working group should also initiate that conversation.
Thank you.
And I would add that some of the recommendations that were in here, the city has already implemented. Conservatively managing our water resources to make sure that an ongoing drought or the degradation of the Prescott AMA water resources doesn't become a critical problem. Some of the recommendations on fire-wising communities, I think we are well in advance of doing that. I think our community has been recognized as probably one of the most effective and broad-based fire-wise communities in the state, but we can still do more. So I just want to pat our city's efforts that have been developed over a number of years and continue to refine those and make them better all the time. Councilman Montoya?
I just want to add something that occurs to me, and I meant to say this earlier, but one of the things that means something to me is I asked directly, you heard me minutes ago, ask Bryn directly if she thought this would be useful, and I think right after or before you guys I think it was after the fire chief did his presentation on the Indian fire and some of the fire-wise stuff that the mayor was alluding to just now. And I asked him in that session if he thought this information would be useful. And so for me, I think one of the important things for the 7 of us sitting up here is to listen to our staff when they're saying this is a resource that we can use. So thank you.
All right, anything further? Any other public comment?
Yes, Kaya.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to underscore and support everything that Patrick laid out. I want to thank you for all of your time in considering and learning about this process and how it might fit in to our community's long-term planning and our regional long-term planning. I effectively just want to emphasize that the goal in our minds of this first step is exactly that, a foundation from which we can move forward in whatever way makes the most sense in terms of our capacity and availability of resources, in terms of the direction that our general planning and other efforts take us as a community, but especially in terms of just feeling empowered as a community, having the information, the resources available to take some certain steps and take tangible action on those things that we know, qualitatively seem like a good fit and a good choice long term. We now have the numbers and that concrete scientific basis to really feel good about investing in those things.
And while Prescott is clearly considering taking a really bold leadership step in this area, I don't want to forget that we also want to work closely with Chino Valley and with Prescott Valley and look at tailored needs that they may have, again, looking through that climate lens and find unique approaches that may not necessarily be the same as what we might do here locally.
Well, it's certainly understandable. I just want to make sure that we don't get into a morass of analysis without any real steps that we can quantify and make sure that they're valuable for our city. Councilman Shishka.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate that. I'm not sure what the overall benefits will be, but I do think that the one benefit for me is going to be that it's going to inspire regional cooperation. That's something that we've really been short on not from a staff standpoint. Staff have always cooperated among the cities. It's at the political level that we haven't cooperated enough. And so if this could be an impetus to moving that forward, if it just did that, I think that we'd be miles ahead.
Thank you.
All right, very good. I'll entertain a motion on this one.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve a climate risk assessment for Prescott to be conducted by Climas.
Second.
A motion is second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Would you indulge me for 2 minutes? I really need to kind of pause and take this in. This is a huge milestone. Yes, it's just a foundation, but I think with the level of citizen engagement that we've seen, it has the potential to really mushroom into some very serious follow-through work and solutions that several of you were raising today. I think that the transition that you have led, not continuing the silence that we heard from previous city councils, it has been transparent, and I think the increased citizen engagement, whether it be CWAG or PAWIC or Protect and others, Save the Dells, you have encouraged that by your actions, and you have listened. So thank you so much. Your support kept this campaign going because we were inspired by the fact that you made this a priority. And really, it opened up pathways that didn't exist before for us in Chino Valley or Prescott Valley. And clearly a shout out to Dr. Meadow, who's not with us today, but that was a huge first step in local regional planning by the gift that they are providing to us over the summer. So we look forward to working with the working group on this Quad Cities climate risk assessment. And finally, a heartfelt thanks to all of our Protect volunteers here behind me, but also out in the hinterlands. Their engagement at so many levels provided the energy and the engine for this local movement to reach this particular milestone today. And I'll see you in a few moments at the Raven to celebrate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 10D, I believe.
11D, Mayor.
11D.
Adoption of resolution number
Let me write that down on my.
Good that you two are keeping each other on target.
2022-1820, ratifying the approval of city contract number 2022-218, an intergovernmental agreement with the town of Prescott Valley to provide basic motor school training.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll lead this one off, and if you have any specific questions for the police department, they're here to answer those as well. But this item ratifies an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Prescott and the Town of Prescott Valley. We were approached by Prescott Valley to do some basic motor training, which is training of police officers on motorbikes, because Prescott Valley had the good fortune of receiving 2 brand spanking new motorcycles through a grant. However, they didn't have anybody to ride them. So they approached us and said, hey, can you help us out? And Todd Attenberger with our police department is certified to do this training. So they called me and said, do we need a release? I said, yeah, probably. Thinking in my back of my head, I've got to deal with Ivan Legler in Prescott Valley, and Ivan's going to tell me he needs an IGA. Because one of the things that our police department insisted upon was when we do these trainings, they tend to burn out clutches rather easily, especially new trainees. And that may require some money. So Ivan said, well, I've got to do an IGA, but I'm willing to kind of enter the IGA now and have the manager sign off on it, and we'll ratify it later. Now, this training has come and gone, May 9th to May 20th, and the police chief has informed me that nobody has been injured, and more importantly, no clutches have been burned out, which is amazing. So this just ratifies the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the town. Under the open meeting law, there are specific things you have to do a ratification. All those have been met. 72 hours of written notice to the public, amongst a few other things. We have to cure it within 30 days, I think, of the the date of the notice violation. So if you have any questions or concerns from the legal perspective, I'm happy to answer them. If you have any questions or concerns from sort of the public safety perspective, the police are here to answer those.
Councilman Montoya.
Thank you, Mayor. I had asked some questions from the public safety standpoint, and I was actually really pleased with the depth and breadth of information I got back. And I think the gentleman who answered my questions is here, so I'd love for you to maybe share with council some of the response you gave to me, and to kind of give you a premise around this. We've approved a number of IGAs recently, and my question was, this seems like we're giving a lot to Prescott Valley, and there's not really an exchange happening here, but there was more clarity that I was given on that, and so please share.
Mayor and Council, thank you. The question was asked, what are we benefiting from this IGA? And what it is future reciprocity from another agency that we work with a lot, and we do this on a regular basis. So, and I use an example, we're going to have a need for some additional training in some less than lethal tactics and whatnot for a mobile field force team that Prescott Valley is going to host. Well, they're going to provide that for us. With this particular training, we were going to have it anyway because we needed to train 2 of our officers. So it was going to happen. The number of hours were going to happen for our trainers. And having these 2 additional PV officers, again, just helps them and gives us some goodwill with them going forward. So that was primarily.
Yeah, and I appreciate that too. Councilman Sishka's point, I think this kind of puts a fine point under this idea that we actually do have really good regional cooperation here on a staff level. It's the people at this level that kind of sometimes get mired in the details of that. So I appreciated your answer to my question and kind of highlighting the real benefit for both Prescott Valley and the city of Prescott.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, I was just going to ask where the training took place.
It was out at the driving track at the Yavapai County facility. So, and that was part of the reason, some of the date, we had to schedule that track for a certain date and time, and trying to get this process done at a council date that we could get approved, that they didn't particularly jive. So
You should have brought them into town so they could practice on the Prescott roads and the Prescott drivers.
well, our new motor officer he's currently tooling around right now and being followed by the trainers. So.
He'll be very well trained then.
Well, thank you, Lieutenant Small. I know it's probably not coincidence that this happens to be Motorcycle Safety Week. And also recollecting my initial training on using a motorcycle or even learning how to drive a stick shift. Fortunately, I didn't burn out any clutches, but I think I ripped out a few transmission gear teeth. So that training is pretty important. Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion unless we have any public comment, do we?
We don't, Mayor.
Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 2022-1820.
Second.
A motion is second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, now we're going to move on to item 11E.
There you go. Approval of city contract number 2022-199 with Heart and Soul Marketing in the amount of $45,000 annually for a multimedia marketing and advertising campaign.
Sure this guy works.
Life is good. Technology is good.
Mr. Casper, it's a pleasure to see you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much and welcome back.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, City Manager. I think this is my 4th visit to these chambers in 13 months. I hope it's as successful as the first 3. But it is a pleasure to be back, and I have 2 objectives today. One is to really quickly recap what we did in our first year as your agency of record, and the second point is to try to outline some of the things that we would hope to achieve in the second year under a contract. But I will say on behalf of the entire Heart and Soul team, you were not only the first RFP we won, you were one of the most important clients that we had as a new agency when we formed in October of 2020. And that is not lost on us, and we invested our heart and soul into everything we did on your behalf. As a refresher, for those of you who may not be aware, in December 2020, the City of Prescott Economic Development, I should say the award-winning Economic Development and Tourism Office, issued an RFP to find an agency partner. We went through a process that also included January, and in February we were identified and selected, but it was a couple months later that we got our agreement from City Council. During that time, we learned a lot about the City of Prescott, its history, and its proud history and its roots. And I think it was fundamental to our approach to creative that we not only wanted to find creative that would resonate with prospective companies that would relocate here or establish subsidiaries here, but we did not want to alienate the electorate. We wanted to make this something that would make everyone proud, and we hope that we did that. We came up with a campaign, and I'm not going to show the campaign again because by now I think most people have seen it, but we got to work on something we called Business Unusual. And the reason we said business unusual is because so many other cities, business as usual involves heavy traffic jams, bureaucracy, stifling bureaucracy, and the City of Prescott has a proud history of being the opposite of that, a very warm and welcoming place. So with that, I recognize that I'm the second to last item on the agenda before adjournment, and it sounds like there's a happy hour at the Raven that we're all going to be at. So this was some of the signatures that we created for this campaign. And then a very brief campaign overview, because many of you may not be aware of how we utilize the media dollars. They were in terms of channels like Google and YouTube video ads. Our flight date actually didn't start until November. We had to conserve our media dollars and really compress them. So we had a wave that was before Christmas, took a brief hiatus, and then came back between January and the end of March. The creative assets we had, most of you have probably seen what we call the manifesto video. It's still out on the website. That's about a 2-minute video that I think does real justice to not only what's happening culturally in Prescott, but also some of the great companies that have relocated here, and then of course the educational assets that we have around us. Our campaign objectives really in that first year were to help build awareness and begin to change people outside of Prescott, their perceptions of what Prescott is. These are just some of the visual assets that we use. These might be screenshots from PrescottBiz.com. Many of you may have seen some of the individual testimonial videos that we did with Mike McCormick and Mark Borowitz from Pure Wafer and John Haas from Embry-Riddle, and now the Center of the Future. And this is what some of the print and digital ads look like in a bit larger format. And we're very proud of all these. But I'm probably most excited to share with you the results, because ultimately this is about driving metrics. It was driving eyeballs. And we're very proud to say we drove over 4 million video views on YouTube. This was much greater than what we had anticipated, maybe 2x more than what we thought. And I think that speaks both to the quality of the creative and also the message that was going along with it. We had 54,000 new unique visitors to PrescottBiz.com, and that's not a typo. That's a 30x increase in traffic to the website versus on an organic basis in the previous 6 months. So when you can get that much traffic, there's reasons for people to come here. It's not just the media, it's because the message is resonating with people. The level of engagement, and by engagement we mean they're staying on the site, they're completing the video until it's over. These are very positive things, and it stayed continuing to trend up until we turned the media off at the end of March. So I don't think these assets have worn out, but we all know that relocating a company is more than just taking an RV trip. You have years to decide where you're going to put a headquarter or a subsidiary or an outpost. And frankly, that's one of the few things that the pandemic probably actually contributed to, is the ability to do more remote work and recognize that people don't always want to sit in an office in Phoenix or in Tucson or in Southern California. So our total impressions, the green dots along the bottom, are some of the metrics that we got. Again, we were very proud of that. And then that leads us into what are our go-forward plans in 2023. Specifically, as much progress as we made on the website, we still think there are plenty of opportunities for further improvement in optimizing both the mobile and the desktop experience that consumers or business leaders may have when they interact. One of the things that John and Ann and Christina and I have talked about is getting a CRM, a customer relationship management program like Salesforce, so that when people start hitting on our website, we can collect that information and then we can follow up and have things that are like drip campaigns and email outreach, things that will continue to foster that relationship with a company who might be getting courted by a number of other cities to relocate their companies there. We also believe that the website probably has an opportunity for a little bit more content, so we want to make sure that we have some blogs and newsletters and keep people thinking about Prescott, both in the state of Arizona and outside. The second area, as mentioned previously, is just some of the creative messaging refreshes that we'll do. And we've learned a few things that maybe weren't optimized the first time around. If you've got a Learn More button and it's at the very bottom of a web page, you've got to find ways for people to interact as they start to scroll down, because not everybody's going to go to the bottom. So email us or sign up for this, and so we can get information sooner in their journey through the website. And then, and it's funny, this morning, I was served an ad on LinkedIn by the state of Arkansas. It was an ad basically saying, hey, business leaders, think about Arkansas. Bring your business here. These are the types of things that are going on throughout the country. We did not use LinkedIn in our first year. We believe LinkedIn is a vital tool to help us geo-target those kinds of companies in the specific industries that we would want to see consider Prescott for a headquarter. And then we can supplement that with email and through the CRM campaign, or program, excuse me. With that, Mayor, again, we thank you for the privilege and the honor of working with you, and we hope to gain your support for another year.
Well, thank you, Brad. I think your measurement metrics and statistics there are quite impressive. I think that anybody who's actually seen that video you put together, it's self-explanatory, because if you watch it, it does certainly create an entirely exciting and different impression of what the opportunities are here in Prescott. And I think that's why some people who've seen that will probably tell their colleagues, you got to watch this. And I think with that, you're creating the kind of interest in not only visiting, but potentially relocating, or at least seriously looking at relocating or providing a satellite location here in Prescott. And I think as you continue to refine your marketing techniques, the more likelihood we'll see even more measurable business development that'll be generated from it. Councilman Montoya.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had two questions. One of them popped up while you were talking. I was surprised when you said CRM, because I run my own business and I've had a CRM from the very beginning. So it's always blows my mind when people are running large organizations without a CRM. Does the city not have any sort of CRM?
So
Not yet.
Yeah, the city as a whole doesn't. The tourism office and the economic development office would like to obtain one.
Yeah, I'd be a big fan of that, because CRMs.
Yeah, tourism does have one.
Okay.
It's a tourism-based CRM, but they all do similar things. They're just tailored.
One of the nice things about Salesforce as a CRM is it's pretty customizable to what your needs are. I looked at it pretty heavily, but I ended up going with another thing that was more specified to my industry. But I was like, how do you not have a CRM? The other question I had, you mentioned the LinkedIn advertising component, and I may be biased, but the only time that I've experienced interaction with LinkedIn, or sometimes one of the things that I think about some level of LinkedIn user is a lot of times people will update their LinkedIn right before they're about to leave a job, and then that'll be their only interaction with it. And so, I'm imagining, I know there's a whole nother layer of LinkedIn where you have business leaders and thought leaders who are all communicating on there. So I imagine you're targeting those types of folks with the types of ads you're talking about, certainly.
Oh, absolutely. And these aren't people just in transition. It's one of the most powerful social media tools that we have today. Facebook is starting to actually regress in terms of its effectiveness. Instagram's picking up. TikTok, and I'm not recommending any TikTok videos yet because John can't dance yet and he can't sing. But we're going to work on that for 2024. But LinkedIn is absolutely the must-have place, and we're not recommending Sales Navigator or anything like that for the city, but Sales Navigator, I can absolutely tell you that it's indispensable right now to business, especially leaders who want to be on the bleeding edge of moving their companies ahead.
And I believe you completely.
Yes.
So I guess my thought with the LinkedIn component is just making sure, it's always interesting to me. I don't go on LinkedIn very often.
Okay.
So every so often, like I'll get a message, an email from LinkedIn and it'll be like, you have 150 notifications. And then I'll go in and there'll be connection requests. And then one of the things that I do find frustrating is I'll connect to someone and then immediately they'll start messaging me to advertise me something. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're not a real connection. But no, I appreciate where you're coming from with the LinkedIn. I think it's, I want to say I'm with the mayor. I really appreciate metric-driven outcomes when you can measure what you've done. And so I really appreciate that you guys focused on that and are going to build on that success. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know I can talk personally about the fact that I've been on LinkedIn for probably 10 years. So when it first started, it was much more position, career kind of focused, but I've noticed in the last few years it's become much more powerful as a kind of a broader business marketing tool, but in a very selective way, so you can decide whether you want to engage in a particular group or not. So I agree. I think it is much more legitimate now for marketing and expanding business opportunities than it did originally. Do we have any other comments? Well, thank you very much, Brad, for your coming up here, and I hope our engagement as one of your first customers will continue to provide a substantial marketing discount.
It's built in.
Considering the powerful results you're generating, I think this is quite a very reasonable, and I think it's almost a bargain for us. And
Don't say that.
we appreciate your engagement with us as one of your first customers.
Thank you. So, Mr. Mayor, actually, just if you don't mind, just a little housekeeping. I didn't get a chance to introduce the topic just for the public's sake. What you're being asked to approve today is a one-year contract with Heart and Soul Media in the amount of $45,000. And I should note that the original contract amount was $70,000. Wow. They've actually brought it down. Partly because they've done so much work already. Also to allow our modest economic development budget to have a little bit more media so that we can purchase more ads and become more effective. So we appreciate their collaboration on that.
Well, it just reinforces my whole comments. Thanks, Brad.
Got the baked in.
Next year it'll be 24,000.
It may be free one of these days.
You ready for a motion? Our interim city attorney to say. Well, thank you again. I'll entertain a motion at this point.
Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2022-199.
Second.
Motion is second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Casper.
I like 7-0.
All right, we move now to item 11F.
Approval of city contract number 2022-195 with Fan Contracting for the Zone 56 Tank and Pipeline and Zone 7 Improvement Project, and approval of city contract number 2019-236A5, an amendment to city contract number 2019-236 with Intellis Inc. for post-design services.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Tim Sherwood, Public Works. Item I have for you today is a project that will include a new 1.5 million gallon partially buried pre-stressed concrete tank and a new Zone 7 pump station. Both will be located just west of York Motors on the map. It'll also include approximately 3,400 lineal feet of new 16-inch ductile iron pipe water main, the removal of the existing 8-inch cast iron pipe water main, and the existing Zone 7 pump station, which is located kind of at the end of that black line there next to Lowe's. It'll also include the removal of an existing 500,000 gallon water tank in Prescott Canyon Estates. The tank and pump station project are two separate designs, but they were being packaged as one bid and will be constructed concurrently. The project also includes a post-design services contract with Intellis in the amount of $103,875.21. Project was advertised in February 2022. We received 4 bids this time, which is kind of nice. Back on April 7th, Public Works is recommending the award of the low bid to Fan Contracting of Prescott in the amount of $9,678,105.75. Staff has received written confirmation of the bid from Fan Contracting. Verification of license, bonding, references, and past performance of previous municipal projects has been completed and deemed satisfactory. The city's standard construction contract will be used for this project, and funding for this project was budgeted in FY22 and is available in the Water Fund. And with that, I will answer any questions you have.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Is this located in the county or in city limits?
It's within city limits.
Because you mentioned Prescott Canyon Estates, aren't they in the county?
They are in the county. We've served them in Zone 56 for as long as it's been there. The original Zone 56 pipeline was constructed back in 1974.
So they're in the county, but they get city water? Yes. And what about sewer? Are they on septic?
That is a very good question. I
guess
do
I'm
not know.
out in the
I do not
weeds
know the
there.
answer.
Okay, I'll find
Mayor
that
Pro
out.
Tem, I wish I did.
And then we have all the easements in place? We don't have to purchase any easements? Or...
That's all been taken care of. The sites, actually, of the tank and the Zone 7 pump station were acquired back in 2012.
Okay.
We amended that and actually got a larger footprint. And then the original Zone 56 pipeline, where the 16-inch pipeline is going to go, was actually granted by state land in 1974, and it was going to expire in 2024. So that gave us opportunity as part of upgrading the water main to also update our easement in that corridor.
So this is going to benefit our important 69, Highway 69 economic
Absolutely.
corridor?
Zone 7 is a very large area with a lot of commercial, Costco, Walmart, car dealerships, the Gateway Mall, southern end of the ranch are all part of Zone 7.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I see this as probably an ongoing upgrade of interest in development in this area. More and more companies are looking to locate on that Highway 69 corridor, and I think this is just a natural progression of not only some old infrastructure, but making sure we have the capacity for new development.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a question? No? Any other concerns? Any public comment?
No, Mayor.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve city contract number 2022-195.
Second.
Motion is second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Mayor, I move that we approve city contract number 2019-236A5.
Second.
I have a motion is second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Did you need something, Gwen?
No, she was asking.
No sewer.
She said that
Oh, there is none, okay.
Prescott Canyon Estates is not on.
All right, well, that concludes our agenda items. I will make a kind of closing comment here. I'm going to take a couple of excerpts of a Memorial Day address I'm going to make on at the Citizens Cemetery, but it'll just be a kind of a brief excerpt. There is a well-known response to the question of what is a veteran. A veteran is someone who at one point in their life wrote a blank check made payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including their life. Memorial Day is a day to honor and remember those whose check was cashed, so to somberly reflect on the real price paid for liberty and the freedoms that we all enjoy and often take for granted. No, freedom is certainly not free. As we kick off this upcoming 3-day weekend, recognize this is the start of summer. Enjoy the time with your family and friends, but keep in mind, those that made the ultimate sacrifice to provide those freedoms, and we hope we never have to cash another one of those checks. May God bless America. Thank you.
Amen.